psychics? Are they real? Is prostitution legal? Can people really talk to the dead? Is prayer the answer? These are some questions you need to know in this historical documentary, the historical chronicles. Well, as you think about it, and as I talked about in one of my documentaries, or should I say the first part of it, remember when it was North America and the Indians owned the land? Remember when the Europeans come and settled here? Christopher Columbus, for example, said he found the New World. But actually we found out, and if the statements are true in history, he found the Caribbeans. Well, after that, it seems that as time goes on, we learn that people tend to talk to the dead. But if you remember in the Bible, I think it was one of the men wanted to talk to Samuel. I don't know I forgot if it was a prophet or who it was exactly. So I'm not gonna try to get it twisted. But there was a woman he had went to, and she dabbled in the dark arts, or black magic, or whatever you want to call it, satanic magic, if that's what you want to call it. And he wanted to talk to Samuel. And when they found out that Samuel came, according to the story, Samuel appeared, and the woman herself seemed to be afraid. Now, can you talk to the dead? That is a question a lot of people ask. Can you really? Can psychics help you? Are they real? I mean, I saw documentaries of psychics, and it seems that they have the ability to talk to the dead, if it's possible. According to the Bible, it's not possible for you to be able to talk, because that's what you call the dark arts. And I always wondered myself that question. So that's a question my viewers, you have to answer. And if you think about it too, in some countries prostitution is legal. If you think about it. Go to overseas, to the Netherlands. It's possible. Okay? The only thing I could think of is that if the government cannot cash in on something, then it's considered illegal. And that is something that everyone, I'm sure, knows about. So, I guess at that point in time, you have to figure, I mean, like some drugs overseas are legal, and in the United States it's not. So, it goes to show you what countries, I guess, have some kind of profit off of it. Well, that's for you to decide, not me. All I'm doing is just giving you the rundown on different things. That's basically it. And think about prayer. Is prayer the answer? People want to know, if you pray, does Jesus hear you? According to the Bible, it says he does. But I can understand. Think about it. We're physical. And when I mean physical, we have a physical body. And think about being spiritual. If you don't have a spiritual body, then you can't really see a spiritual being. Is it possible to see a spiritual being? Well, with this philosophy that I'm getting ready to break down to you, it's hard for you to see something spiritual if you're physical. If you think about it logically, it is. But if you have what's called faith, then I think you should believe. Shouldn't you? Well, not only that, we have different religion. See, when these Europeans came to the North America, they have different religions. And we have Catholic, Buddhists, Muslims, we have Baptists, we have in and every religion you can think of. We even have atheist, Satanism. I mean, you think about it, we have a lot of different religion. Are all religions the same? That's the question you have to ask yourself. That. But I guess in some part of everybody's life, you have to have something. You have to believe in something. You have to have some kind of belief in something. And I kind of learned that years ago, that you have to have some type of belief. Because if you don't believe in anything, then it's hard for you to get up in the morning, do something with your life. It's hard to make certain decisions if you don't believe that your decisions are accurate. Well, not only that, but if you think about it, our ancestors had some type of belief too. I mean, I think everyone does. See, I was told years ago that you have to have some type of belief. My grandmother and mother told me that. You have to have some type of belief. You have to believe in something. Not only just believe, but I think you should do something. Everybody should do something in life. You have to accomplish something. I think if you have a purpose in life, it makes you want to just keep going and not want to stop. I think our ancestors did the same. I think they had a purpose in life. Think about it. When they left their hometowns in these other countries, or should I say overseas, and come to the United States, which is now what we call it the United States, they had some kind of purpose to leave. If you think about it, they did. So as I kind of wrapped up that and some other stuff, let me kind of talk about some other things in history. In history, we have what's called also the Bible codes. I don't know if a lot of people heard of it. I'm sure if people ever seen the Da Vinci Code, that was something interesting to watch, really. A lot of books they have out here have a lot of information. We live in what you call the information society. And in this information society, a lot of information is out there. My viewers, you need to check it out. It's out there. Reading is fundamental. You have to read in order to learn. But here's the question. The question is all the things that you've read, especially non-fiction books, are non-fiction books true? Well, if you kind of remembered, not too long ago, they had a writer who wrote about his memoirs. He was on Oprah. And if you think about it, the memoirs were not true. So that's the question. Are all non-fiction books, are they true? Or is part of it true and part of it a lie? But usually, if you think about it logically, if something is half true, half a lie, then really it's all a lie. If you think about it logically. But I'm not going to make that decision to my viewers. It's for you to make that decision for yourself. So, as I started reading these history books, I learned that not only the history of even my ancestors, but the history of mankind, I learned a lot of them when the United States was starting. Think about this also. Think about on the dollar bill where you see the eagle with the 13 olive branches. Wouldn't it kind of give you an idea of the 13 colonies? Just a thought. Only a thought. And with the unfinished pyramid of the OCNI, does that give you any ideas? Does it kind of hint on world domination? Just a hint, just kind of hinting around. My viewers, you're the ones to decide. And I kind of think that when they had the Constitution, you know, we are the people. And I think that when they wrote the Constitution at the time, I think their logic was meant for that time. And I'm kind of thinking, because the Constitution has been revised more than once. There's new laws, new rules. Even a lot of lawyers don't know all the laws. They write new books about new laws. A lot of people in the world don't know the new laws. A lot of people don't know what people in the Congress do, the House of Representatives and the Senators, what they do, what they vote on. Here's an idea. Why can't the public, everybody in the world, have a chance to vote for certain bills that get passed in Congress? Why does it have to be always the House of Representatives and the Senators? But whatever they vote for, that becomes that bill unless the president vetoes it. So I'm thinking, whatever these congressmen and women are voting on, I think as the public we should have a right to as well. Isn't that part of freedom of speech? I'm just hitting around, probably is not. I'm just kind of hitting around. Isn't that a democracy type of country that we supposed to be? Shouldn't we be able to vote as well? Just hitting around. Like I said, I'm not giving my viewers specific answers. I'm just hitting around at what of ideas that I thought as I was doing my own research. Also, scientists, think about this: cloning. Is it possible for people to be cloned? Or are these scientists just watching too many science fiction films? I'm just hitting around. You never know. Is it possible that these scientists can get certain things, designed out to the public? But here's the thing. If you think about it, we're thinking about global warming. We need efficient fuels that we can use. Everything is going digital, if you notice. Is that a good thing, a bad thing? Is analog good or is it bad? Which one, I guess, is cheaper, analog or digital? Well, if you think about it logically, and I'm sure you probably come up with an answer. My viewers, you can. But here's the deal. Shouldn't we have cleaner fuels? What about the trash that we use? Can we reuse it? Is it any way? Is recycling worth it? Is recycling worth the time and effort? Even though you might not maybe get a lot of money out of recycling, the question is it worth it? If everything that we're doing to stop the climate changing, which climate is going to change no matter what, because we have a lot of carbon dioxide in the air. And here's another question. How long do we have until the ozone layer is completely destroyed? It's something for you to think about. But I guess in this life, there's a lot of things we should have figured out years ago before it happened this time. Now we're worrying about climate change, and we're worrying about the people and the struggles they go through. Is it right? Is it wrong? That's for you to decide. Well, as soon as our ancestors came to these different countries and settled down, then we started seeing more immigrants. Well, we have what's called an open door policy where a lot of immigrants can come in. And it depends on the circumstances, which I'm not going to get into detail, but it's circumstances. That's certain things we shouldn't talk about. Politics, religion, well, those are the only two I can think of. That mankind shouldn't really discuss to one another, unless y'all have the same views, I'm assuming. But there'll come a point in time where we have to learn something in life. Our ancestors learned. Think about this. If you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat it. And then there's no future for any one of us because they will not have a future for your children and your children's children in this world. Think about that. I don't know if my viewers remember in the 80s when the USSR used to be this big country. Russia used to be this big country. It used to be a totalitarian dictatorship, totalitarianism. And I hope I'm pronouncing the word right. Totalitarianism, I believe. And in this dictatorship, every one of these people had to dress the same, I guess. Everything was the same. And I kind of made me wonder, now this is just a hint, I'm just hitting around, not telling you exactly. I'm not really telling you exactly what I really think of all of these things in history. But I'm hitting around. Wouldn't it look like what happened in Russia is kind of happening in certain countries, or in different countries, if you want to know? Think about the telephone company. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone just like Benjamin Franklin invented electricity. But if you kind of hint around it, certain countries or different countries kind of resemble the example of what the USSR was years ago in the 80s, 70s, 80s. And I think so. Maybe. I'm just hitting around. I also think in history, and as I started reading history, you learn the so-called facts in history. You learn that each individual did certain things in history. My question is why don't they tell the whole story? If you're going to talk about somebody or write a story of someone in history, why don't you write the whole story? That means not include just the good, but include the bad as well. I think you should. See, when I do a documentary about myself, which I've done, you're going to learn the good side and the bad side of who I am. Because everybody, I believe, in the world has two sides. You have a good side and a bad side. You have, or should I say, everyone has their own set ways. And when you have your set ways, a lot of people can't tell you what to do. You know everything. Teenagers used to be like that. I'm sure they still are. And I think when you have your own set ways, it's hard to make someone change. It is. Because change can be good and change can be bad. It's up to you to decide. And I think as years down the line, as we learn from our historical events in life, I hope we don't repeat what has happened in these days and times, or we call sign of the times. I think also we learn that in life things sometimes don't turn out right, or should I say don't turn out the way we want it. I have a feeling that we get what we want at the time we want, or let me rephrase it. We don't really get what we want. We get what we need at the time we need it. And I think everybody in the world does that. It's just a question of the time and I guess the season. Everybody know when seasons change. We know when it's spring, summer, fall, and winter. We know the seasons change. If you look at the trees, you know these seasons change. Well, I think everything probably takes a time or a season for you to get what you want. The way you want it, how you want it. That's what I believe. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but that's kind of my belief. And in history, when you write history, make sure you always talk about everything. Just like I said before, talk about everything. Do not leave any details out. Think about this. All these different men on these dollar bills. George Washington is on the $1 bill. Think about that. Why? Abraham Lincoln is on the $5 bill. Andrew Jackson is on the $20 bill. Hamilton is on the $10 bill. $50 bill is Grant. $100 bill is Benjamin Franklin. Think about that. Why? Let's talk about different people, famous kind of people in the world. Let's talk about Malcolm X as well, Martin Luther King. Let's talk about some of our other presidents that we've had. Jimmy Carter. We've had, and y'all remember our first president, George Washington. At the time, the White House used to be in New York at one time. I think so, but don't quote me on it. Then I think it went to Pennsylvania, and then I think it moved to Washington, D.C. I believe in that order. Probably not that order, but something similar to that order. And they voted in George Washington. I guess they won only a handful of people, I believe. You know, when I look at different elections, especially when you're watching elections, you see, if you think about it logically, sometimes I think the media is not right at certain things that they portray. I believe so. And I think that has been since history started. So, I don't know if anyone feels that way, but I think I do. Probably other people as well. Let's also think about other people in history. We also remembered Napoleon. You remember Genghis Khan. You can also remember other people in history as well. I'm just giving you variety of different people in history. Think about the people that have done good, people that have done bad. Think about people and their characteristics, because in history, characteristics is something to watch for. Your eyes, the gestures you make, the way you act, your emotions. That's part of making up the characteristic of a person in history. And think about the time when France conquered a few countries in Europe. Think about the time where Genghis Khan conquered parts of Asia. If you think about it. Think about it. And you have to come to some conclusion in history of what people have done. Think about the first computer that was made. It's the floppy disk. Now they turn into those little hard floppy disks. Like now everything is digital. DVD, Blu-ray type of software you can say we use. Everything is changed. I think a lot of inventions have changed society, especially after in you could say the 1900s, kind of, when the late 1900s, when we started getting into the digital age that we are in now. It's fascinating. Some of the devices we have is interesting, but I'm gonna be honest with you. When there's bad weather, it doesn't matter what type of weather it is. Doesn't matter if it's hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, or blizzards. Majority of your stuff, they do not work. Think about your devices. Some of that do not work. Even cell phones go out. Think about also in history the books that has been written in history. Think about the different people that wrote things. Think about our ancestors who are, should I say, everyone's ancestors who wrote on stone walls. At the time, that's what they did. And they left certain images for for us to know what happened. What has happened in that culture? What are we supposed to know? And how can we not be extinct like that certain cultures? Because if you think about it, each culture that has been, should I say, risen to power has fallen, and you can't find majority of anything. So think about each carving that you see, especially in documentaries, or if you get a chance to see it personally, think about it. There's a story. In history, there's always a story. It's a story to tell. And if you believe the story, or if you disbelieve the story, that's up to you. It's always up to the individuals what they want to do, if they believe or don't. It's all up to you. Remember also in history, if you remember Muhammad Ali, if we also remember Hitler, if we remember the thousands of Jews that got killed in the camps, that's all part of our history. Think about what these people did in history. Think about what was the outcome. For every cause, there's an effect. Think about all of these wars, all of this hatred, anger, bitterness. Is it worth not knowing your neighbors, not knowing who you are, not knowing who they are, not loving anyone? Think about that in history. What made these Europeans take over the land for the Indians? What made people enslave other people? What made these events happen in history that changed us? I mean, for a lot of things in history, a lot of us have seen the good and the bad that comes out of war. But there was always war since mankind walked on earth. There was always war. War in the Middle East. We got war in every country you could think of. There's war, or rumors of war. It's like history is, we're repeating ourselves, what our ancestors went through, because this is history. All of this, think about the seasons as they change. Think about daylight savings time. Think about the hungry people in the world. That hungry people in history, we have hungry people today. We have people who are in mental institutions. Back then we had that as well. We had people who are poor back then, people poor now. People who committed suicide then, they're doing it again. What has changed in history that we have seen that has made a big impact? Is it technology? Is it who we are as people? Is it the times? What could it be? Think about it. If anything changed. What makes a person a mentor? Think about that, because in history they had mentors as well, if you think about it. So what makes a person a mentor? What makes a person who they are, the way they are, how they are? Is it their environment, their characteristics? Is it their personality? Is it the parents, grandparents? What is it, or who is it that changes a child's view? Is it the environment that he sees or she sees? Is it what they see on television, what they hear, rumors? You know, in history, rumors were flying then, rumors are still flying now. That's always going to happen, especially when mankind walks this earth. There's nothing new. If anyone ever heard of a saying, there is different sayings, but there's one saying. There is nothing new under the sun. That is one of the sayings. Besides, you don't have to listen to what people say, the way they say it, how they say it. Think about this. If they don't put a roof over your head, food in your stomach, clothes on that bag, does it matter? That's what people should have learned in history down the line. So think about it, people. We live in history. Every one of us is living proof that our history will live on. That's history, baby. It's always history. Every time you take a step, when a child is born, everything that happened in your life becomes history. No matter what it is. You've become what people will call historically the events in your life. You're a history book that's walking. That's what history is about. Think about it. To learn the facts of your history and how history has begun. Think about 1,000,000 years ago where the dinosaurs were. Think about 50 BC. What about 500 BC? Think about 12,000 BC. Think about those times. Think about all the way to 100 AD, to all the way to 1100, then all the way to 1900, and now 2000. Think of those years, those decades. Think of history. What I encourage everybody to do is read not just the Bible, read the history books. Read American history, African history. Read histories of all the other cultures from China, Japan. I want you to read histories on the UK, Europe, South America, all these different countries in South America. Read the histories throughout Canada and Mexico. Read the histories throughout Iceland. Read the history throughout different countries in Africa. Read the histories of Australia. Read all the history books that you can and come up with your own conclusion to history. Because each country has a history, and each country's history, they have done things in history, good or bad. This is your chance to understand history. This is a globe of North and South America. These are the countries in these two continents that I want people to read about. This is the history you can find of different people in these two continents. Now if you look at these two continents, you'll see Africa and Europe. Plus you'll see parts of Asia. Reading history of these cultures in these countries will give you an idea of about what has happened. Piece together every idea you can think of. You piece it together and you can find out a little bit about the history of the world. And then that's the other part of Asia plus Australia. These are all the continents with, let's include Antarctica. With these 7 continents, you'll learn the history of our world. The history that will give you an idea of what everyone is about, what our ancestors did, why they did what they did, why you'll be able to find out details upon details of historical events. Think about this in history. Are there any historic facts that led you to believe that in this historic events, the history books that you've read, do you believe that there are codes? Some people believe in history, especially in different historical books, there are codes, just like in the Constitution. Are there codes that's been encrypted in all of these stories? If they are, then is it true what the inscriptions mean? What these codes mean? Some people need to think about it. Read. It's fundamental. Now if we break the color lines in history, you'll be able to understand why. That is the question. Why things happen is the question. The answer is, you have to find out what that answer is. So I hope as you watch this historical documentary that you'll understand that in history, it's up to you to decide whether or not the answer, are you able to find it or not? That's the question. That will always be the question. Why? And if you want to find the answers to it, then I think that everyone should be able to find answers to your questions. Not just reading. And yes, reading is fundamental, but read. Find out. I think everybody should kind of find out about their ancestors and who they are. It'll give you a sense of who you are as a human being. If you can figure that one out, then you'll be able to figure out everything else. Don't you know that everything falls into place? Certain things happen to certain people. Maybe it's meant to happen, maybe not. Maybe what happens to someone may not happen to you. Maybe it's part of a design. Ever think about it as part of the Creator's design? Whoever this Creator is, it's part of that design. If there's a Creator at all. Think about it. What the good thing about it is when you put two and two together, or when you put two different informations together, you can understand. I was told as a child that 2 plus 2 does not always equal 4. And if you think about it, if you've ever done any mathematical problems, especially algebraic problems, you know that a lot of these problems don't add up. It's impossible. Or they don't have an answer. Or the answer could be infinity. Or they could not have an answer. So I don't know. But not just reading. Why don't you visit museums? I encourage people to visit museums. Look at the artwork. Look at what happened in history. If you're able to travel, go to different countries, go to their museums, listen to what these curators talk about. Listen to it. With all the freedom, domination, totalitarian, all these different things, world government, everything you can think of, put everything together. Put all these histories that you've read together. Come up with a story. Then maybe you'll understand why people do what they do. Why you have to go through the things you do. Like I said before, you never know. Is this a real reality? Or is this something that comes from someone's mind? Maybe this Creator's mind. Are we real? Is everything that happened real? Are we some characters playing in a poem? Think about it. Do people really believe in what they see or don't see? Do people believe what they hear or do not hear? I have noticed that people, especially individuals, people are not stupid or dumb or crazy. People have certain ideas of what happened, especially in history. But if you do not read, if you do not do your research, you will never understand why things are the way they are. Learn. Life is a lesson that you need to learn. Just as we learn history about different people, we should learn the history about our own body as well. That's another history we need to learn. Why our body does the things that it does. We should know our body. We should understand our body. We should appreciate the body that we have. Because you'll never know when it's your time to go. Or should I say, you never know when death knocks at the door, when you have to die or whatever. You'll never know. But I think the more information you get in life, the more you understand, then I think you're able to do what needs to be done, or try to make things happen in your life. Try to be someone. Try to do something in life, maybe to help someone. Do something. Peace, babe. I'm Jeremiah Simeon. I want you, the viewers, to go out and vote. This is your chance to get your voice heard. So whatever you do, go and vote for any political leader that's running. Remember, your vote counts.